Hello, everyone. It is Jamie from Independent Street Tarot. We're here to talk about this dark moon that's happening on May 16th. It'll be at its peak at 3 o'clock here in New Orleans. I do have the astrology wheel behind me. I know it kind of freaks you guys out, so I'm just going to use it just a scotch and then take it down. I think that I was told I should not have it behind me before I start and then put it up, but I'm just going to do it with it up and then put it down because my background is just as of now, me sitting on my couch with a little stuffed dragon in the background. So let's just go with it. Okay. May 16th, the sun and the moon are at 25 degrees. Okay. Dark moon happens when the sun and the moon are conjunct, when they're together, and there's no illumination on the moon. This is the sun represents our masculine, our moon is our feminine. So this is that time of creation, right? This is the time when the masculine and feminine are together, and we could think of it as even ourselves coming in, having a time, a quiet time. I always tell this, especially to women, if you do not know how to schedule quiet time for you, go with the moon cycles. Dark moon is that time. I can't do anything right now. I'm in this dark moon phase, right? It's 2.5 days. It brings you back to center, it brings you back to yourself. When the moon then starts to have some illumination, I call that the new moon. That's when we really start to plan. Okay, that's when we start to plant these seeds because now we can see because the moon is lighting the way, the sun's lighting the way, right? Our masculine and feminine are working together, are lighting the way for these seeds to be planted. So, right now, we're talking about dark moon energy. And the things that I want to point out is that the sun and the moon are conjunct uh, Mercury, who's still in Taurus, finishing up its move in Taurus before it moves into its home sign of Gemini. The sun and the moon are going to be are conjunct Uranus, who has already moved into Gemini. Remember, it was in Taurus for the past 7 to 8 years. Um, they are sextiling Neptune. Sun and moon are sextiling Neptune, who's still in Aries. And then they're trining, let me move this. Whoops. They're trining Pluto, who's now retrograde, 5 degrees of Aquarius. Okay. So I'm going to leave, well, maybe I just leave it up here for a minute. So when I was trying to think about what are the things I could talk about with this dark moon, because there's so much going on, right? There's so much in the media, there's just so much in the world right now. Um, and then, it was brought back to my attention. You got to keep it simple. You got to keep it practical because that's what, to me, earth signs represent. And this is the dark moon of Taurus, and Taurus is fixed earth. I see the four fixed signs as the pillars. I see them as temples. That's where we go to kind of reset ourselves because of the energy that they hold. And Taurus just went through a huge renovation of her temple because Uranus went slamming through there for the past 7 to 8 years. And it was ending, as it was in there, it was ending the age of Pisces and bringing in the age of Aquarius. And so her temple had to fall and rebuild itself in this new age of Aquarius. So what it was destroying with Uranus in there for those past 7 to 8 years um, was the age of Aries, was the age of Pisces, and bringing in this age of Aquarius. So on one hand, it's like, oh, Uranus was just in there for eight years, no big deal. Um, but what was happening energetically and astrologically was a big deal, right? And it's beautiful that it happened while Uranus, who rules Aquarius, was in Taurus to help destroy and rebuild at the same time because Uranus does rule Aquarius. So they were able to have a very good conversation about this. It's two fixed energies um, working together to destroy and rebuild, which is kind of what Uranus does, right? And so now Uranus has moved into Gemini. It's going to be in there for the next 7 to 8-ish years. Okay. Gemini is also an air sign. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is finishing up. You can't see my glasses because of this shit, but Mercury is finishing up its time in Taurus. So they're all having a good conversation, right? And the fact that the sun and the moon, who are in Taurus, are sextiling Neptune and trining Pluto, right? So that's what the story is to me of this dark moon. Okay, so now that I said that, I'm going to change my background so we can go back to just me at my house with my stuffed dragon over here. So it wanted to make an appearance today, so there it is. Okay, so with the sun and the moon, 25 degrees of Taurus, in this void, in the darkness. This is when we have this time of rest. This is when that masculine and feminine energy are together. This is this is the time of creation, but it's more always like a spiritual creation, you know. It's not until that moon starts to illuminate again, as the sun and the moon start to move apart, is then we can really start to um make those plans, right? Start thinking about, okay, this is what I should be doing. The time of the dark moon is that time of rest. It is that time of sitting with the self, you know, decompression if you need to, um, see what comes in, right? Bringing what's in the unconscious to the conscious. Okay. And so the thing that I think we're doing with this dark moon and the fact that the moon and the sun are talking to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, right? Those are the transpersonal planets. And we're gonna, and I looked up the meaning of that, right? And so we're gonna get to that in a second. The personal planets are the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Okay, those five planets. Those are the personal planets. Those are the ones closest to us in the sense of where Earth is, right? They're all the closest. Um, and then and Saturn is a Saturn, I think. I don't know if Saturn's transpersonal or personal, because Saturn's the boundary, right? So Saturn's also a personal planet. The transpersonal planets, and if I'm wrong, I'll put it in the notes, you guys. I'll look it up. Um, the transpersonal planets being Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, right? They're further out. They are further out in our galaxy, so they represent different things than what our personal planets represent. The personal planets are very close to us. It's our ego, it's how we feel, it's how we think. Um, and then the transpersonal planets are outside of that realm. And the sun and the moon in this new temple of Taurus are in deep conversation with the transpersonal planets. And transpersonal, that's what I looked up. What does transpersonal mean? Thank you for asking. Transpersonal, experiences, states of consciousness, or psychological development that extend beyond the individual personal ego, encompassing wider aspects of humankind, nature, or the cosmos. It literally means beyond the personal, transpersonal, focusing on spiritual, mystical, or peak experiences that expand consciousness past traditional boundaries of time. So, going above the past traditional boundaries of time, space, and identity. And that is where we are right now. We are moving past all these old identities, the way that we use time, the way that we see space, moving outside of the ego. What else did it say? Encompassing wider aspects of humankind, nature, and the cosmos, right? And so the Stark Moon is having this conversation in Taurus, and Taurus is absorbing all this energy of these transpersonal planets, right? Gaia, Mother Earth, is starting to vibrate with this. Neptune being spirituality, right? Pluto, the cosmos, okay? Or no, I say sorry, Pluto's an Aquarius, but Pluto, transformation, death, rebirth, right? Uranus, the cosmos, okay? And so Taurus, she's absorbing all that new information from them, okay? And she's putting it in a safe space, right? That is solid. She's putting it in the earth, right? If we need to get to this information, what do? We commune with the earth, we commune with the heavens, we commune with the stars, we commune with plants, we commune with nature, we commune with our communities, communing with our communities, um, in order to move things forward in this age of Aquarius. The sun and the moon are about to move into, well, the moon will go first and then the sun will follow into Gemini, right? And so we're going to be having these new conversations. Um, and it's important to understand, when you have a conversation, you usually want to talk to someone that you think is stable, and can see the big picture and see things maybe differently, but also can bring in that wisdom. So Taurus at this time is bringing in the wisdom of Pluto, right? Of death and transformation, which can be scary, right? When we think of those things, right? Especially as we are experiencing them in real time. Um, but it brings in the knowledge of nature, right? The knowledge of cycles, the knowledge of you can keep it simple, you can keep it practical. You don't have to do all the things because there is a bigger rhythm, there is a bigger picture, there is a bigger timing than maybe we can see because we are too much in the personal at times. Having that conversation with Neptune, who is the spiritual, right, and the unconscious that is in Aries, in that I am presence, right? Where is your ego now? I am different, right? Because I can now see that things do change. There does have to be some belief in what I can't see, right? There does have to be some belief and the spiritual um, that does um, that does not does belong, but that is in my unconscious that I'm now bringing to the conscious, right? Um, in that conversation with Uranus. Uranus scans the cosmos and brings in all that star energy, like that, the energy of the cosmos, the energy of new ideas, the beyond, right? Bringing it in. In Uranus is in Gemini right now, who is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is that messenger of the gods, right? You know, the beautiful thing about Mercury before he became the quote unquote trickster, which I don't see him as the trickster anymore, um, was that he had that important job of bringing messages from the gods to us humans, right? He also took messages from one god to another god, right? So he did that. And then he also brought us messages as well. And so Taurus is absorbing all this energy of wisdom, right? Because these are all, um, well, Neptune is not, but I was going to say fixed signs. Scorpio is Pluto, Uranus is Aquarius. Um, but Neptune is Pisces, and Pisces is mutable. So that kind of blows that one out of the water. But it is bringing in this energy of spirituality, transformation. And where do you go? Like, where do you go when things are going so quickly? Where do you go when time's moving really fast? Where do you go when it seems like everything that we knew that was stable and solid is falling to the ground, And the idea is you go within. You go to nature, you go to Mother Earth, you go and sit with the stars, you go and sit with the rivers, you go and sit with the lakes, right? And I understand not everyone is, there's plenty of landlocked places, right? Um, but that's when you just go and get in nature the best you can. Like you do go lay on the grass, or you go hug a fucking tree. No one's gonna care these days, trust me. You do go buy a couple plants from your hardware store and talk to them every day, right? You do take that time to go and gaze at the stars or just lay underneath the moon, right? You do take those times. And that is the map that we need as we move forward. Um, as we move forward in this time frame, but also for the rest of the year, right? The Wheel of Fortune, because it's a number 10 year, It moves quickly. The year of the fire horse, that horse is running. Um, and when we talk about, I'm in an astrology class, and my teacher always talks about going to the middle of the medicine wheel. That's where you find your reprieve. In the story of Taurus and this dark moon, it's telling us the same thing. This is where you find that reprieve. You find it in the heart of the mother, right? You find it sitting with Gaia. You find it, um, I don't want to say like this meditative state because, what I think it's a meditative state is just the idea of being quiet and quieting your mind. It's not this idea of doing like a 20-minute intense meditation. It doesn't have to be that long. But it is this idea, you know, of the Empress, right? She's sitting in nature. She wears the crown of the 12 stars because it represents each zodiac sign. Um, you can see there's water behind her. You can see the grain by her feet, right? She sits on this throne. Um, and it's about receiving. She's ruled by Venus. Venus is that feminine energy. The Empress is this feminine energy. She represents again Gaia, Mother Earth, and it is about receiving. And I think this is also the other very important message as we move into Gemini season. Gemini is very dynamic. It's okay to take somewhat of a pause. I was talking to my friend yesterday. She runs her family's business. It's always something with AI. It's always something new, and she was saying last year when they were talking about this stuff, all that stuff they talked about is totally blow up. They're talking about this stuff. And there has to come a time where we kind of just sit and reassess. It's the idea of getting out of fear. It's the idea of not, knowing you're not going to be left behind. It's that idea of kind of sitting and receiving. What is the message? What is the message? Is there a different way to do this? Is there a different way to look at this? Transpersonal, going out above the beyond, understanding there are tones of things that are showing up that we have already lived through. There are things showing up that I know my mom has definitely lived through, you know? Um, and having a little bit of reflection on that. My mom and I were talking, because I went home for Mother's Day, about how people are always like, there was some 30-year-old, and she was like, and my mom's time was so much easier and all this stuff, and they had this, that, and the other. And we were talking about like every time is relative to its time. People that were having a tough time 30 years ago, were having a tough time 30 years ago. People that are having a tough time now are having a tough time now. It's all relative. Um, and so the things that you can take from that, though, is that um, the human spirit does survive. We did overcome a lot of those things. They're trying to bring back a lot of those things from the past. And the reason that stuff's not going to work, even if it looks like it's working, is because we're in a new age. We're in this age of Aquarius. Uh, Uranus has moved into Gemini. So that's going to be a huge kick in the nuts to everybody trying to run scams or talk out both sides of their mouth. Um, but also this energy that Taurus now holds. Taurus is now realigned with that divine feminine energy, which is good no matter how you identify, any of those, what your pronouns are. We all have divine feminine energy. We all have divine masculine energy. She has realigned with the divine feminine energy. She has realigned with what real self-worth is. She has realigned with, you know, saving the planet, understanding how important the planet is, understanding how to work um, with nature and not against nature. And I know right now we have all these AI centers and stuff coming in, but the more that we learn about them, the more discourse that comes up. Okay, the more we're like, maybe this isn't, where we should be heading, right? This dark moon working with these transpersonal planets it's getting wild outside. I don't know if you can hear all this stuff, is reminding us to take that break, right? We can listen to things, we can hear new ideas, but we can also go back to what we know as our innate wisdom. We can go back to things that we know are true, right? That, if you don't want to believe the robots, you don't have to. You can believe the sun, you can believe the stars, you can believe the earth. Um, it is going back with the energy of Venus, right? And she's charging, she's leading the way. She's already finishing up her time in Gemini, and she's going to be moving on to Cancer. Okay, so we do, and she's the evening star. She shows up, she's leading the way. She's leading the charge, if you will. And her going forward, she's mapping the sky with all this really beautiful feminine energy that is wise, right? That knows how to birth things, right? That knows how to transmute, bury things, okay? Um, and she knows how to work as a team. That feminine energy is known to be chatty and wants to work as a team. Chatty, and friendly and all those stereotypical womeny things, nurturing, all those things. Mm. But it's also important to know that she understands how to work with that masculine energy, right? Mars is finishing up its time in Aries and getting ready to move into Taurus, okay? And again, it's this idea of being in alignment with the masculine and feminine energies. I know sometimes that freaks people out. If that freaks you out or you don't understand what I mean by alignment, drop in the comment below so we can talk about it, okay? But to me, being in alignment is that understanding of receiving and moving at the same time. Um, push and pull, not exactly, but just like when they say moving and flow, and it's because you're listening to your higher self and you're moving. That movement is that masculine energy. And it would even be like giving birth. If you're listening to your body and your body's telling you when to push, you push, right? And that's when the baby comes out. That's the creation. Um, and so that's a good metaphor. So when we're listening to all these things, and there's trust your instincts. Trust, okay, do I need to go at this time? Is it okay if I take a beat, maybe learn a couple more things? Is there something else that can get me there without doing all this other rigmarole? Go back to the simplicity of Taurus. Go back to the simplicity and to keep it practical. These are the things that I can do right now. I understand things are falling, things are changing, things are, ending. Here in Louisiana, it is looking awful, okay, for our judicial system. They're trying to take away our right to vote. Um, it's not good, right? Um, but it's also remembering that we've been here before, okay? The idea of disenfranchising people is nothing new, okay? Um, and there's just going to have to be different ways that we fight this, right? And so if you are watching social media and you're getting kind of flared up, take that pause, right? We've been here before. The difference is we're in a new time, we're in a new energy, we're in this age of Aquarius, right? Um, the zodiac, the fixed signs have new energy for us to bring in. They are giving us new answers, okay? And if there's other things moving too fast, if you don't want to use this AI or this AI is this, look to see if there's other things you can do. I often tell people, especially when it comes in business terms, you were able to get yourself here without AI, okay? And look, maybe AI is good for your business. I don't know. This is me just doing general terms, general blanket statements, okay? But if you're not sure if you need it to move you forward or where you're at with it, go back and revisit what you've done and maybe pinpoint the things that you need to move yourself forward, right? Practical, simple. That's Taurus. Maybe you don't need to redo everything. Maybe that's not practical right now. Maybe it's not the most simple, you know? When it comes to yourself, maybe you don't need to be involved in 68 different groups. If it's not keeping your life practical or simple, cut it down, right? Um, you know, I have the star card, which represents Aquarius, and then, the Empress. Both of them have to do with understanding nature, understanding the cosmos, right? The star card here represents Aquarius. The Empress represents Taurus, right? But in both of these, it is a woman. In this one, oh, I can't. This one, you can see the waters behind her over here. And then with this one, she's got one foot on land and one foot on water. And it is the idea of working with the energy of the earth, the intelligence of the earth, but it's also the idea of working with the intelligence of the cosmos, bringing it from out there, putting it within, right? Understanding there is a different way, there is a bigger way. Not everything is what it seems, okay? But we have to get into this quiet state, right? In order to get to this state, to bring in, feel that energy, listen for those new answers, and move it forward in this age of Aquarius. Whoop. Okay, I hear Dottie barking. All right, I'm going to leave it at there, guys. Me and my dragon are going to finish cleaning up the house. I hope you guys have a beautiful dark moon in Taurus. Look up that word transpersonal. See what it means to you. Understand the sun and the moon, which represents our masculine and feminine, are having these deep conversations with these transpersonal planets. Taurus is absorbing this new energy, right? So she can start putting it out there. So we can start getting it just by being like, oh, aha, okay. That's Uranus. And Uranus is in Gemini, and that's where the moon's going to move, and that's where the sun's going to move. But Dottie, I hear her mom screaming Dottie, but the earth is absorbing this energy and will be releasing this energy too. Go to the temple of Taurus. Take a rest, and just remember to keep things practical, keep things simple. Okay, friends, I will see you soon. I will do a video on Uranus and Gemini. I'll do that next week. Okay, till then.